Welcome back to the Adventures of the Monad, which will look at life, the universe, and everything. My name is Kazim Kamal-ur-Rahim. In this series, I ask the question, where do we come from, who are we, and where are we going? I post one presentation a week. Please subscribe to my website and hit the bell icon for notification of future videos. You can also leave comments and join in forum discussions on my website. This was going to be the last in my series of presentations on paranormal phenomena. When I got to my word limit, I found I'd only covered 2 topics. Anyway, the term paranormal implies that this activity may not be normal, but it is not abnormal either. Humanity has the tendency to label any phenomena that is not immediately explainable as being magical, mystical, supernatural, or just the work of the devil. I hope to date I have given you enough reason to think that although most of the phenomena I have been talking about do not occur every day, they could occur. What is more important, they are phenomena that could be developed by yourself if you took the time to focus your willpower in that direction. I wish today to start my presentation by talking about a paranormal phenomena I have mentioned on a number of occasions, that of clairvoyance. Growing up, I knew many people who had the paranormal gift of clairvoyance. I interchangeably swapped this term with that of medium. Today, I wish to explain how these 2 phenomena differ from one another in major ways. For this reason, they should be considered as 2 separate phenomena. Clairvoyance is the ability to objectively perceive the emotional world 48 and above. For most clairvoyants, plane 48 is their limit. The most important differentiator between clairvoyance and mediumship is that clairvoyance is an active process. It involves the persona directly engaging in an activity they control at all times. I will get to mediumship in a minute and discuss that in detail as well. Clairvoyance is usually not an ability but a disability due to the monad having a damaged etheric web. The etheric web blocks most objective perception of the emotional world, but not all. The dim perceptions we have of this world is dampened by our physical bodies and the conscious level of our mind. It was not always like this in the past, when humanity was not as heavily embedded in the world of matter. As adults, we are conditioned to operate in the physical world. However, as young children, we still seem to have a window into this higher plane of existence. This is often expressed when a young child talks about their imaginary friend. One misconception that is worth clearing up right from the start is that clairvoyance does not occur through the activity of the third eye. The link that the monad makes into its higher subtle body on the emotional plane occurs through the navel chakra. People are used to thinking about visions being related to physical sight of something that is usually invisible most of the time. So, if you have such a thing as a third eye, this must be the organ of vision. However, if you think logically, what is the plane above the physical plane 49? It is plane 48, the emotional. Which chakra is linked to the expression of emotions? That is the navel or solar plexus chakra. So, if you somehow have access to plane 48, would it not be this chakra that was the gateway and not the brow or ajna chakra? As I repeatedly state, your level of objective consciousness is up to the highest level your monad is focused on. For most clairvoyants, this is rarely above the molecular subplane 48.3. This plane is known as the plane of the mystic. This is a consensus environment, and a monad focus here often is drawn towards seeking union with whatever it deems to be God. Famous clairvoyants such as Rudolf Steiner were fully objectively conscious up to subplane 48.3, but no further. However, as I hope you have all taken on board by now, nothing on the emotional plane is as it seems, and it is very easy to be tricked by your own preconceptions or deliberately misled by others. Having said all this, what can we expect when we are actively present on the emotional plane? We can now remember our experiences there in our waking consciousness. It starts with the fact that the emotional world is four-dimensional. A good way to get an idea of what this means is to know that on this plane you are able to read a crumpled piece of paper. Try visualizing that and see what you come up with. While you are doing that, let me tell you what competencies a clairvoyant has. They can naturally see physical objects on subplanes 49.7 to 49.5. However, they can zoom into the atomic structure of these physical objects. A famous example of this was Charles Ledbetter's ability to visualize the structure of an atom, and the description he reported was later confirmed by scientists. Every physical object composed of the three lowest subplanes of matter has four higher etheric counterparts. Three of these subplanes, 49.4 to 49.6, are objectively visible to the clairvoyant. The fourth and highest etheric subplane, 49.1, is not accessible to the clairvoyant for the reasons that I have already explained in previous presentations. Surrounding the physical etheric body is the next lowest subtle body, 48, and the clairvoyant can also objectively visualize this emotional counterpart of the physical etheric structure on the subplanes 48.7 to 48.5. Going back to the crumpled paper example, on the emotional plane, the clairvoyant is able to view all sides of the object at once. They are also able to see inside it at the same time. This may sound very weird, but it is something we all experience when we go to sleep and visit the emotional plane at night. We just forget about our experiences because of that blasted etheric web. Well, I should not knock the web. It does a sterling job protecting us from all sorts of mischief that could occur if it was not present in our lives. The last ability the clairvoyant has is to be able to examine the molecular memory of the Akashic records on the emotional plane. This gives you some insight into the history of the object under examination, but a very distorted one that needs to be apprehended with caution. Clairvoyance means clear vision. This, unfortunately, is a bit of a misnomer for the following reasons. The first is that the clairvoyant themselves may have limited abilities and may not know how to make the best use of the abilities they have. The next issue is the four-dimensional nature of the emotional world. This can lead the clairvoyant to get confused with words and numbers when they try to describe what they have just witnessed. Another obstacle is that beings and objects in the emotional world are less permanent than their physical counterparts, so they appear fluid to the clairvoyant, and this makes them difficult to assess. What is the emotional world composed of? It is composed of subtle matter. What is this subtle matter composed of? It is composed of elementary essences, in other words, secondary matter. What is the primary characteristic of secondary matter? It is passively conscious. What is the net result of passive consciousness? This matter is only able to react to conscious inputs from quaternary matter, i.e. you, the monad. So, the clairvoyant finds themselves on a plane that is capable of expressing thoughts, emotions, desires, expectations, ideas, or opinions. All these things can come from any quaternary matter that happens to be nearby. The result of this is that objective consciousness experienced on the emotional plane is not very objective at all. The net result of all of this is that the clairvoyant's own beliefs color their perception of this environment. They simply lack objectivity. They end up finding their own evidence. This may all seem harmless enough. Clairvoyants end up seeing what they expect to see. Big deal. Well, it can be, because this plane is also inhabited by other emotional entities that I've identified as black magicians. Their prime objective is to retard the evolution of humanity by subverting the aspirations of other monads to their own will. For this reason, attention, discernment, and practice are needed to be a good clairvoyant. You have to be able to discriminate between temporary and permanent phenomena. Most clairvoyants have an ability that they stumble across and then try to make sense of it. Objective perception of the emotional, mental, and causal worlds practically occur when a monad takes the I3 and gains enlightenment. At this time, the etheric web of the monad is consumed by the kundalini, and a new web is built that the monad controls itself. Before you get to the dizzying heights of the I3, 3 cultured and 4 compassionate souls can develop clairvoyance through yoga. This was and is the standard technique used in India for millennia. In this manner, the practitioner is able to bring objective information through the etheric web. Ultimately, this technique is not advised, as it hinders rather than aids spiritual development. The soul engages in trying to develop this faculty rather than expanding their consciousness. It also gives the practitioner a false estimation of their personal level of development. This, unfortunately, can lead to developing an overinflated spiritual ego. It is always worth reiterating that non-enlightened clairvoyants have no means of discerning their truth from falsehood. The net result is that they can be easily misled. They believe what they see and hear. But who exactly are they communicating with? If you arrive on the emotional plane expecting to see some semi-divine being, guess what? They are likely to turn up. This discarnate soul is likely to appear as you would expect to see them. They then proceed to regale you with their words of wisdom, but how evolved are they? You were expecting to be conversing with the font of all knowledge, and you end up talking with an ex-petrol pump attendant. We all can't wait to hear what they have to tell us. Clairvoyance allows us to see behind the scenes. Is this a good idea? Well, if you consider that this is not the norm for most of humanity, clearly this is not how things are planned to be. It is defeating the whole purpose of incarnating into the physical plane, which by your very presence here restricts access back to the emotional plane. We are here to learn by experimentation and experience. We are not here to cheat. This has always been a less effective way of learning. Someone with a clairvoyant skill can end up developing a false belief system. This counteracts another important objective of taking a physical incarnation. This is important, so listen up. I have encountered students of esoterics who believe that we are down here on the physical plane to help redeem matter, whatever that means. However, somehow, we, out of the kindness of our hearts, come all the way down into this constraining world as an act of kindness. Our natural home is supposedly on the subtle planes above. Well, here's the rub. The emotional world is a world of fantasy and illusion. Yes, it is a more pleasant environment than the physical plane, but you can easily get hopelessly lost in your own delusions. The mental world is a much more pleasant environment than even the emotional world. However, this world is the world of thought. So guess what? you make up a series of illusory environments and then proceed to inhabit them. I talked about the glowing thought bubbles we inhabit on our way back to rest in our causal bodies after an incarnation. Can you now begin to see what the physical world is affording us? It is allowing us to overcome the illusions of the emotional world and the fictions of the mental world from below both of these planes of matter. This affords us the opportunity to permanently liberate ourselves from false beliefs. Just as an aside to any budding clairvoyant out there who are thinking of setting up a business, if you mislead someone, even if done unwittingly, you incur bad karma. Just so that you know. So, you are wandering down the street and you suddenly realize you are a clairvoyant. How did this suddenly happen? Spontaneous acquisition of clairvoyance may be the result of practicing yoga in a previous lifetime. This could also be the result of engaging in black magic or witchcraft rituals. In the latter case, what happens as a result of this misuse of energies is that you damage your etheric web, and this damage follows you into subsequent incarnations. People who have visions or hallucinations are experiencing a bout of clairvoyance. These experiences can be triggered by the use of drugs, fatigue, or trauma. There is a difference, however, from the types of clairvoyance that have been discussed to date. The reason is that these clairvoyant visions are constructed from emotional world matter in response to activities from the monad's subconscious or superconscious memory banks. This would lead to the classification of this type of clairvoyance as being objectively perceived dreams. That makes it very different from actually waltzing up onto the emotional plane and wandering around aimlessly. So, that has been a fairly comprehensive view of what clairvoyance is all about. I wish to end this section by telling you what is not clairvoyance, and that is etheric vision. This faculty is just an expansion of your normal sight. This is somewhere we all head, as we naturally evolve our physical etheric bodies. However, it should be noted that the consumption of meat and animal products counteracts the refinement of the physical etheric body. The net result of this is that the natural activation of the etheric objective consciousness 49.4 to 49.6 is hindered. This is a lifestyle choice to consider. I am not prepared to give up my cheese board in this lifetime. I mentioned at the start of my look at clairvoyance and mediumship that there was a fundamental difference between these two types of paranormal activity. What makes a medium a medium? All mediums share one interesting characteristic. They have loosely connected subtle bodies. Sounds like wearing a baggy sweater, and in a way it is. The clairvoyant, on the other hand, has a poorly functioning etheric web. Now you know the differences. Let me explain further regarding mediums. When you go to sleep, your emotional and mental envelopes leave their physical etheric body. The life thread still connects all three bodies together, but the consciousness thread detaches and the monad, with its two attendant subtle bodies, goes walkabout on the emotional and possibly the mental planes. While this is going on, the physical etheric body, which is a self, in its own right, continues to function and carry out the necessary tasks required of it. So, while the cat is away, the mice can play. In this particular case, the physical etheric body is potentially available for another entity to take over the whole complex or just part of it and use it for its own purposes. This is possession, but it is only temporary, you hope. Just to reiterate, when the monad and its higher subtle bodies are not attached to the physical body, another entity can take over all of the physical etheric body or just part of the etheric body. What is the purpose of all these shenanigans? By the monad vacating its physical etheric body, it allows a non-physical being to take over its body and communicate with whoever happens to be present. In this way, humans who are not clairvoyant have the opportunity to communicate with discarnate entities. This can all happen because of the loosely connected emotional and mental bodies of the medium. If there is just a partial possession, then the medium temporarily relinquishes some matter from its etheric body. This allows the discarnate entity to manifest itself to the assembled gathering. It should be noted that mediumship is not to be considered a psychic power. The medium has relinquished its own power, so is not involved any further in proceedings. So, how would you categorize a loosely connected set of subtle bodies? Are they a gift or a disability? The answer to this question can be gauged from the fact that mediumship is detrimental to one's long-term physical, emotional, and mental health. So, you have people who have this disability. What of it? Well, sometimes bigger problems occur when mediums act as channels. This process supposedly allows those gathered to receive information about the spirit world. Here is a rub. Dead people don't know any more than living ones if they are present in the emotional world. If you happen to encounter through a medium an emotional world entity claiming to be an ascended master, oversoul, archangel, or some such entity, run. They are frauds. Why? Because ascended masters do not communicate through channels or mediums. The lowest world they cooperate in is the causal. Also, take note, anyone claiming to be enlightened for the purposes of making money is not. Channeling differs from mediumship in that emotional world entities do not take possession of the medium's entire body. They control the voice box, or in the case of automatic writing, the arm. As a rough guide, only about 20% of those claiming to be mediums actually are. This is why when researchers attempt to study the subject, they get such varied results. Okay, so let's assume you have an effective medium in front of you. Who is exactly trying to communicate? Lee Bladden states that 50% of those entities trying to channel are actively trying to mislead the sitter. He estimates another 45% are well-intentioned souls, but are just ill-informed. That just leaves 5%, who are authentic spirit guides with trustworthy information to impart. That is not a very good strike rate. To wrap up our look at clairvoyance and mediumship, I wish to make a few points. Firstly, both clairvoyants and mediums call the physical world material and the emotional world spiritual. This implies that only two worlds exist, and the beings in the spirit world are more knowledgeable. The reality is that the reverse is true. Emotional consciousness contributes nothing to the understanding of reality. It is just a driving force to activate mental consciousness. The beings who reside in the emotional world have not activated their mental consciousness, so know practically nothing of the true nature of reality. Ponder this the next time great truths are pronounced via the services of a clairvoyant or medium. If you wish to read a transcript of the presentation or leave a comment, links to my website are in the description box below. Thank you.